Coming up, the Heat 2X engine from Copenhagen.
Falcon 9 has some great re-entry footage.
And we're joined live by Tyler Reno, the CEO and founder of Open Space Orbital, to talk about his Kickstarter campaign for a rocket. Stay tuned! Tomorrow begins now.
Flag up now, and you can see the stars and
Private space station.
And welcome to Tomorrow, episode 7.25 for Saturday, August 16th, 2014. My name is Benjamin Higginbotham. With me, as always, the beautiful, lovely, wonderful, and talented Carrie Ann Higginbotham, and we'll be your hosts for this episode. You like the way I did that?
I do.
Yeah, that was pretty fun. Before we get started with space news this week, I did want to give a huge thank you to the premier patrons of Tomorrow. These are the people who've contributed at least $10 to this specific episode. There are so many people this week, we had to break it into 3 columns. You guys are freaking awesome. You are the lifeblood of this show. If you'd like more information on how you can support Tomorrow, you can head over to patreon.com/TMRO. We are a crowdfunded show, so every dollar helps. You don't have to do just $10, you don't have to do just $10. That's true too.
You can do $100.
You can do $100
we
per
will
episode,
accept
whatever
that
you
as
want.
well.
Whatever you want. You don't have to
so
do
funny.
$10. You can do like $1 if you want. Whatever you think is fair for this episode. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Copenhagen suborbitals.
I love that wrong.
Copenhagen suborbitals. I love these guys. They are crazy, but in like a good mad
way.
They're like crazy mad scientists, kind of like in the good way.
Yes.
These are the guys who they're like, let's build a submarine. And so they build a submarine. They're like, let's build a rocket. So they're building a rocket, and they plan on sending a human on this rocket eventually. So here is a static fire test. This happened earlier today, August 16th at 13:30 Universal Time. This was broadcast. By the way, this was broadcast live. Kudos to Copenhagen for broadcasting this live. A lot of companies and entities, and they don't broadcast these things because they're so afraid of failure. These guys did it live. Check it out.
10, 9, 8, shoot, 6, 5, 4, 3.
All right, now, at this point, I think we kind of lose audio. Now, we're about to lose everything. There you go. There, we just burned through all the cameras.
And boom. There you are.
Later today or tomorrow, we will post some photos where you can actually see all the cameras on the test stand burning. I have brought with me a couple of examples here. As you can see, I'll try to show it to the camera. This here actually once was one of our high-speed GoPro cameras. Maybe we can salvage something from it, but it looks quite burnt.
But it looks pretty intact. It's quite incredible, though.
Yeah. This, however, is the backside of one of our high-speed cameras, and this is not doing so well. And we have a lot of stuff, but we will.
Thing?
Oh yeah, this is one of the remote controls from the cameras that we also managed to salvage up from the platform. But apart from all this, apart from the engine failure, I actually think that we had a pretty good test. We have learned a lot today.
So here's a shot where it actually, you can see the whole thing from top to bottom. There it goes. I feel like there's fire shooting out of the side of that thing. and I think that was engine cutoff, and I think it's still on fire. But you know what? So that's what these static fires are for. It's to learn about these engines. The engine had a burn through, and it did shut down prematurely. But look at how awesome this is coming along. Also, I love the windmill the windmill in the background for power generation. That's just awesome. So yeah, that was their test that happened earlier today.
So cool.
They were fairly on time. They got their procedures down. They learned a lot from this. You know, they obviously have some stuff to work on their engine, but I'm excited for them to do another live stream of this and to show what's going on. And all their burnt cameras and everything else was pretty cool.
Love that. And keep the burnt cameras.
Keep the burnt cameras.
Those are mementos.
They are. Put them in a bucket and just like every launch, just have a new bucket of burnt cameras. All right, so
awesome.
let's move along. So SpaceX released the recovery footage, or the Stage 1 re-entry footage, not recovery footage. Stage 1 re-entry footage for Orbcomm. Check this out. So here we go. We've got Falcon 9 sitting on the pad. This is a couple flights ago. You can see the Orbcomm fairing sitting up top. I love that shot. This is the recovery airplane going out. Or not, I keep saying recovery. This is a plane with a camera on it, trying to track it. Now, if you look in the middle of the screen, kind of hard to see. Well, you're actually going to see Stage 1 free falling back to Earth. How amazing is that? You'll see another shot of it coming up here in a second.
Fake. I'm not going to lie. The first couple of times I saw this.
There you go. Just whoosh.
This looks fake.
This thing. Now here you go. You've got the
Unreal.
final landing burn on. You can see it kind of pushing and parting the water. And unfortunately, the plane is scary far away and could not maintain track. And it did lose it at the end, but and I know we all wanted to see like that last, it was just like 2 more seconds.
Sure, fire, but
two more seconds. It doesn't matter. The fact that they got anything at all was pretty remarkable.
Pretty cool.
And I think it's just awesome and inspiring footage seeing a rocket stage free fall back, free fall back,
Also
light its
crazy.
engines, and basically hover over the ocean before cutting its engine. I don't know how long until SpaceX is ready to land on land, but hopefully it'll be coming up shortly here because those camera views will be amazing. One way or another, they will be amazing. All right. We had some launch coverage. This comes from Space Launch Complex 3 East at Vandenberg Air Force Base. It's an Atlas V in a 401 configuration.
5, 4, 3, 2. We have ignition and we have liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket carrying the Worldview 3 satellite for Digital Globe.
And there you go. This happened on August 13th, 2014 at 1830 Universal Time. This is the most powerful Earth imaging satellite for the commercial market that hath ever been built. I said hath. It is capable of resolving surface features on the Earth as small as 1 foot across. It has a multispectral imaging system and a high-speed data downlink. Check this out. 1.2 gigabits per second is how fast this thing can down. That is faster than my home internet by not a small margin. So this is a quote from Neil Anderson, who is the Vice President of Technology at Digital Globe. He said, quote, "With the capabilities of this satellite, we could see home plate in Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. Not only can we see home plate, we can see the players in the field. And if we knew which teams were playing and what color uniforms they were using, we could tell you which team is in the field, which team is batting. We could even count empty seats. And if the stadium scoreboard was big enough, we could tell you the score." Yeah. Creepy. A little creepy.
a little creepy. But I think it's hilarious. You can tell that Neil is not a baseball fan because it seems to me that if you can go all the way down to 1 foot, the average human is a little bit bigger than 1 foot.
Sure.
Could you not read that on the back of their, or on the front of their jersey?
Well, no.
It says Dodgers or Tigers, for instance?
You may not be able to. It depends on the angle in which. So you might be looking straight down at the field.
Okay.
You might be looking at it at a
I'm
slight
just saying,
angle. I mean,
they
who
said
knows?
that they can count empty seats, and yet they're telling me they can't tell me whether or not it's the Dodgers at bat?
Nick Forever says, "I hope Facebook doesn't get their hands on this."
Facebook you know what? Never mind.
Facebook's already scarier than this. It doesn't matter. All right.
I just think it's hilarious.
Moving right along, this is an interesting piece of news. United Launch Alliance has had a switch up in their CEO. The old president, Michael Gass, who has led United Launch Alliance since its inception in 2006, has been replaced by Tony Bruno, who's an executive at Lockheed Martin. Now, the interesting thing here is that Michael Gass was also a Lockheed employee, and United Launch Alliance is a consortium between Lockheed and Boeing. So there is sometimes you have companies like this where you've got multiple companies joining together where you go, company A runs it for a while, then company B, then company A, then company B.
Sure.
Clearly that is not the case here because we just went Lockheed, right, back to back. So that was interesting. It also felt very sudden to me So maybe not. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens on August 20th with those engines coming in for the Atlas V.
Yep.
So we talked about this last week, saying, all signs are pointing to yes, United Launch Alliance is going to get that shipment of engines from Russia, the RD-180 engine for the Atlas V rocket.
Despite sanctions.
Despite sanctions, despite anything else. But then this came along and it felt very sudden. So I'm purely speculating here, but that felt weird.
Sure, it feels sudden, but I don't know. I mean, he didn't step down already, right?
He said he's
stepping down
retiring at the end of the year,
right? So, I mean, there's been a little bit of notice. He didn't need to 3 months ago say, "Hey guys, by the way, I might be heading out this year." Right?
It also could be that
We're not
decided
inside the company.
he decided to
maybe
step
there's
down.
been rumblings. We don't necessarily know that.
You're right. We have absolutely no idea.
But it does feel sudden.
It feels sudden, and I think we'll have a lot more data in like a month.
Sure.
So we'll hold for a month and see what happens there. The opposite of Copenhagen suborbitals would be China. So China launched a Long March 4C rocket on Sunday, August 10th at 5:45 Universal Time.
And that was live,
there's no video. So
No, that was live. We just missed it.
there was no video.
There was like lots of.
This was a military launch. Well, this may have been a military. So, video? You have video? All right, go.
I've got video. Ready?
Here we go.
Director says.
All right, that was
There you go.
Awesome video.
Perfect.
China says that these are scientific satellites, although Western countries, such as the United States, believe that these are part of a naval monitoring fleet. China also said that, oh, no, this is just one satellite. However, our long-range tracking system found 3, not 1, and not where they said they were going to be. So
Maybe it broke up. It broke up into 3 pieces?
no, in fact, we monitored the three different satellites in their stable orbits, mind you. Broke up into 3 pieces in stable orbit.
Maybe.
And we also monitored the upper stage.
No, maybe it's a
Yeah.
loss in translation. It's a loss in
Nope.
translation?
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 and 3 sound alike in Chinese?
This actually follows 3 previous launches, one in March 2010, one in November 2012, and one in September 2013. So it looks like they're bolstering their satellite military system, as it were, and getting a worldwide tracking system in place. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Right? I mean, we have one. We probably have way more than one. I'm sure that
sure we do.
many countries have this. So it's the fact that they're hiding it. Even the U.S. military is like, hey, secret satellite, we're not going to tell you what it is, but here's live launch coverage. And like, there it goes. But opposite of Copenhagen suborbitals. It makes me sad when we try to hide stuff like this, because you can't hide it. It's impossible to contain information like this. All right. I'm just going to really touch on this really quickly. Speaking of China trying to contain information, there's a possibility that by the end of the year, China's going to be sending they'll likely be sending a mission to the moon. Mm-hmm. Now, what they're saying and kind of what we're looking at might be 2 different things. I guess we'll find out more information later, but the kind of one author speculated that China's actually sending a spacecraft to the moon that will be an engineering prototype to determine the feasibility of them sending astronauts or taikonauts to the moon. And so that's pretty cool. It's towards the end of the year. They will in fact launch a spacecraft to the moon that will return to Earth for a soft landing. It's officially going to be returning rock samples. Now, for it to be an engineering test, it would probably do a free return, much like Apollo 13 did,
Sure.
Or much like Russia did back when we were all trying to race for the moon. They're saying no, they're going to go into orbit. So we'll see what happens at the end of the year. So outside of the idea that keeping information contained is stupid and sucks, and no one likes it, we want to see your cool rockets. We want to see the cool stuff you're doing in space. Don't try and hide it. It doesn't work. Outside of that, how awesome is it going to be if they are actually able to put humans back on the moon? That will be pretty cool. Really quick before we go to break, check out spacehack.org. It is a directory of ways to participate in space exploration. It's just a really cool website. It's not really a news item. I just thought, hey, we've got a really active community here on Tomorrow, and a lot of people want to do more than just watch a show week after week. Maybe you want to help find asteroids. Maybe you want to, give computing power to SETI. I don't even know if that's in their list, but I feel like there was some sort of shared computing power thing.
Sure.
This has 3 things on there. There's pages and pages of different things that you can do to, participate in space exploration. So that's pretty cool. Once again, that's over at spacehack.org. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we do, we've got a live interview with Tyler Reno, who is the founder and CEO of Open Space Orbital. I actually sounded a little Canadian when I said that. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. Filled with some expectation. This girl's a fascination. And nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking. She's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving. Her heat keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking. She's fire walking to be free.
And welcome back to Tomorrow. Before we begin with this interview segment, I did want to give a huge thank you to the patrons of Tomorrow who've helped to make this specific segment of this episode go. These are the people who have contributed at least $5 to this episode, and you can get more information on that over at patreon.com/TMRO. We are a crowdfunded show, and every single dollar helps. And speaking of crowdfunding, we've got Tyler Reno from Open Space Orbital joining us today. They're trying to crowdfund a rocket. Tyler, welcome to Tomorrow, and tell us, what are you guys doing?
Hi, Ben. So what we're doing is trying to develop Canada's first orbital launch vehicles here in Nova Scotia. So it's as much of an exciting adventure as it is a historic one.
Traditionally, Canada has not launched much of anything, correct? I mean, that's not a place where we've launched rockets from.
No, it really isn't. Magellan Aerospace out in Winnipeg actually has quite an impressive track record of launching sounding rockets. I mean, I think there are over 8,000 now, but nothing orbital.
So what will you be bringing into orbit with your rocket?
Well, we're hoping to deliver particularly very, very small satellites, nano satellites weighing less than 10 kilograms, nano satellite constellations, and even really, quite small microsatellites. But our vehicle's anticipated payload capacity is going to be around 50 kilograms, which is much lower than just about any of our competitors, and at the same time, much lower than any rocket really has ever targeted.
So you're targeting kind of this smaller market, right? So you're using Kickstarter to help fund the rocket, but this would be a great rocket for other Kickstarted satellite campaigns to launch up into space with.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, in this industry, $100,000 is pennies, really. It really doesn't get anybody all too close to developing a fully functional orbital launch vehicle. But what it does do is give us an excellent opportunity to refine our preliminary designs, advance our company business-wise, and put together a pretty impressive prototype engine that we're excited to develop. And
from the chat room, JDNZ82 is wondering how much it's going to cost per launch. So if I'm starting a Kickstarter campaign of my own, I'm going to bring up nano satellites. Let's say your campaign's successful, you've got your rocket. How much for me to launch on your rocket?
Yeah, that's a really fantastic question. What I will say is I'll put it in terms of what we hope to accomplish. Again, we are in the development stages. What our research has shown and what a lot of the history in space has shown is that what we really need, not only to provide great service to the already existent market, but in order to support a future market, a market in which just about anybody could get involved and develop really creative satellites, a cost that would allow that to take place, almost like phone apps being developed for smartphones. This would be kind of like satellites, right, being developed at that pace. That would be around $1 million. Now, that's a relatively crazy claim, given the costs of launch that have been seen up until today. That being said, well, particularly because the floor price of launching is usually about $1 million. Before you even do just about anything, usually you've spent $1 million in the launch process. So it's a large feat, but we think that if we can aim to develop a very small, highly operable launch vehicle for around a launch price of about $1 million, then we'd be not only of great support to 1, 2, 3U nanosats, but we'd also allow the emergence of all kinds of small satellite developing companies.
So what do you have in your past to help demonstrate that you're going to be capable of doing this in the future? Have you developed sounding rockets before? What do you kind of have in the previous area?
Definitely. So we are a startup. That being said, we're taking a little bit of an X-Core-like approach to this situation. We, again, as a startup, we don't have all too much developed as a company as of yet. We were actually incorporated this year. That being said, collectively as a team, we have performed some pretty impressive work with rockets, particularly our rocket engineer, Adam Trumpour. He's a concept designer and a propulsion system designer. He actually owns his own propulsion rocket lab. It's quite remarkable. I visited it. It's extraordinary. He's developed some really impressive liquid propellant engines, test fired them in full. And he's going to be bringing that to the table for us. And when I mentioned that we were taking a little bit of an X-Core-like approach, we're basically approaching the situation step by step. So like we saw with Canadian Aero, which is a former Canadian company that was trying to perform manned missions, that was way too much to bite off at one time. And we're learning from that. And what we're trying to do is take it again incrementally by developing a small engine as a prototype, proving our design concepts, moving on towards a larger scale first stage engine, testing that, making sure that's right, and then taking it one step at a time and hopefully having funding come in at each step.
So this $100,000 initial Kickstarter campaign, where does that get you in that scale of different things?
Yeah, so it really advances us in just about every direction with regards to company development. So from an engineering standpoint, it allows us to test or develop actually our first prototype engine, which is kind of a test of our key design concepts in the case in which we're trying to simplify the liquid propellant engine. And also it helps us perform a nation-specific market analysis. Again, where Canada's never launched something in the past, there's never really been a need for that in-depth of a specific market analysis. So we're going to be completing that, finding out exactly what sort of orbits our existing customers, but also future customers are going to be launching into. We're going to be doing refinements to our business plan. There are also some legal expenses and so on, but the real meat of it, though, is that prototype engine that we're really excited to finally develop and test out.
So let's talk a little bit about that prototype engine for a moment. The chat room's actually very curious about that. BZ Wing Zero is asking, what sort of propulsion method are you looking at using? So liquid fuel using, is it RP1 liquid oxygen? What are you kind of thinking of using there?
Yeah, at the moment, it basically demonstrates some common understandings that have come to the table in the last decade or so. For one, it most likely is going to be RP1 and liquid oxygen based, and that complies with the ablative cooling approach that we're taking. Basically, the main design concepts are to, number one, develop a vehicle that's extraordinarily, almost unseemly cost-effective, and at the same time lower the weight of the vehicle. So when it comes to the engine, we really have to take any approach available to us to lower the weight. So that's going to include ablative cooling instead of regenerative cooling. We're going to be using a pressure-fed system for the engine instead of a turbojet. A pump-fed system, and so on, and using composites like strong structural carbon composite base, other than a heavier, more historically popular metal base.
So that's actually a huge undertaking, right? Because using, for example, a carbon composites structure, we talked about that with Dave Maston a little while ago, which is extremely difficult to use in rockets. So that's a fairly experimental technology. This will be your first. It sounds like you're going to own the whole thing, right? You're going to own the engine, the structures. I assume most of the avionics. I mean, this is in-house, tip to tail, your own vehicle.
Well, yeah, that's. I'll be honest. I think that's more of a long-term goal. In addition to the great economic or business opportunity, I guess, that we have on our plate, we also are most definitely looking outside of the box at the larger nation or a larger national impact that a project like this can bring to the table. That it has the opportunity to bring to the table, and that's basically a result of it being a collaborative effort. So we actually have lots of conversations open with companies actually competing for the contracts to develop those components. And for the time being, looking at it as more of a collaborative team effort, as a Canadian effort, we're very open to that. And again, the day very well may come in which it's a completely in-house process. But from our discussions thus far and the competition we've seen from potential manufacturers to develop our nozzles, to develop our COPVs, we think that it very well might start off as an outsourcing as well as an in-house effort.
One thing that's going to kind of come up time and time again in some of these new space companies is that they need to be able to launch often, right? So you're only as good as your ability to launch. If you only get $1 million per rocket, then you're only getting $1 million per year if you only launch once, or $2 million per year if you launch twice. So Smarty987 asks, what will your turnaround time be, your expected turnaround time be between launches?
Yeah, we're hoping that we'll be able to do it literally at the snap of your fingers. Metaphorically speaking, we'd like to be able to launch every week. Again, that's a lofty goal, and it's actually quite a popular goal. I believe Peter Beck has mentioned that he'd like his new Electron rocket to be able to do that. And I think that it makes a lot of sense. It's very obvious that his team has put in the same sort of research into the projected market. I always say it. You can't go where the puck is right now. Just like Wayne Gretzky says, you have to go where the puck is going. And to satisfy the needs in the wildly growing small sat industry that is growing extremely exponentially, you have to develop a launch vehicle that can be launched very, very frequently. And it cannot be a process of undergoing months and months and months of tests and reanalysis and certification for every single vehicle. It has to be highly replicable and extremely reliable. Almost like the Scout rocket, actually. It's funny, we had initially diddled around with going with a solid propellant base, almost identical to the Scout rockets, actually, all solid propellant base. Unfortunately, the costs associated with storing and handling solid propellants are extraordinarily large, particularly in Canada. So that placed a very large barrier on us to go that route. But reusability, especially launching every week, would be a massive asset.
And you mentioned your Canadian company, which was sealed when you used a hockey reference. But BZ Wing Zero is asking, where do you actually plan on launching from specifically? Because Canada, you're fairly far up north, which means that it's a slightly less strategic place for low Earth orbit type of launches. You'd be looking more at polar orbits or something like that. So where will you be launching from, and what kind of orbits are you expecting?
Yeah, so we're anticipating launch in the same general area, actually, that NASA targeted for a spaceport, as well as Canadian Aero when they were, around. It's basically around the Alder Point area. It's about a 46-degree latitude, and it is quite convenient, actually, for polar orbit. We're hoping to be able to provide a maximum altitude of 800 kilometers and really be able to target customers of the polar and sun-synchronous orbit satellites. And again, as for air traffic, we've actually looked into just about every area in Canada, and almost any area in Canada could be a candidate for a launch site from that perspective. But again, given that we're a peninsula, we're geographically, again, it's not overly technical, but geographically speaking, we are quite similar actually to Cape Canaveral in the sense that we're almost entirely surrounded by ocean. And again, we're reasonably southbound. We're reasonably southern in comparison to many other locations in Canada. We're not too far off from the equator. And even speaking in terms of weather, again, a lot of people pose the question of, well, what about the winters? Again, in Canada, the winters can be a lot more severe than places like Florida and and so on. But we actually feel, we've looked at that area, and we think that it's most certainly avoidable.
No, I would argue that Florida is really nasty to launch from because it's the lightning capital of the world, and having a large metal vehicle with rocket fuel on it is not exactly a conductive or is conductive to launches, depending upon how you want to look at the scenario. Sophia asks, it seems like public-private partnerships are the principle by which American private launch providers have established themselves. Is this something you're considering? So are you moving beyond just crowdfunding and looking at partnering with companies as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, we've already extended an open hand to many companies here in Canada. Again, one thing that we do suffer from is a relatively severe lack of support governmentally. The Canadian Space Agency has quite openly said that they have just about no interest actually in supporting a launch capability here in Canada, and that they intend to focus more principally on the payloads, on the satellites themselves. I actually beg to argue that there are much deeper, much more complex consequences to making that decision, that sort of decision. It's not just a decision of saying, okay, we'll launch with another country, that's fine, we'll let them take all the risks, we'll let them have all the control in the launch industry, and we'll just build the payloads. It's a lot more complex than that, in the sense that in an era in which the space industry is rapidly growing, almost as the space or as the tech boom did, in that sort of industry where many more prominent countries like the United States, like China, like Russia, are making such innovative and such aggressive moves towards being dominant in space. I fear that if we weren't to enter the launch industry, we'd actually fall behind irrecoverably to this, basically to the degree that it would be virtually impossible for us to catch up from a capability standpoint with other countries in space. And again, as it becomes more prominent to mankind, I think that it's a national responsibility to keep up. But again, kind of referring back to what you mentioned about company-to-company partnerships and so on, we're very supportive of that. In fact, we with the companies that are open to doing outsourcing work for us and have strong histories in composite manufacturing and so on, it's looking like there are definitely some partnerships even in province in the work. So we're excited about that.
And actually, along those same lines, Chris Howlett asks, from the investor's perspective, if you're going for companies or investment money, what is your company offering that others are not?
Yeah, so I guess I'll have to look at it in what context. So if it's what are we offering in terms of service, it's definitely going to be that much lower payload, much smaller vehicle service that is virtually. I'm aware of just about every rocket company in development right now, and even just about all of them are targeting a payload over 100 kilograms. Even the new Electron rocket from Rocket Lab is stated as having a payload capacity of 110 kilograms starting off. 50 kilograms is a lot less. That being said, with our simplified approach and our main goal, again, of remaining dedicated, that's another thing, remaining extraordinarily dedicated to the members of this small satellite industry. Most companies have the long-term goal of starting off with small launches, proving themselves, and then getting into the bigger stuff. We're actually taking a much different approach. We believe that the future is in the small stuff, and it's actually going to get smaller and smaller. You're looking at the numbers, up through 2020, the dominance of the 1, 2, 3, 4 kilogram nano satellite is indisputable. It's absolutely extraordinary. So if somebody like Open Space can come along, put in the hard work and grind it out and develop a launch vehicle that is so cost effective that these small satellite customers no longer need to be a secondary payload, which is the big thing. It's just replacing the secondary payload with the primary due to cost. That's going to be extraordinary. So as one of the only more prominent companies out there trying to do that, particularly in Canada, and given the advantages we have of being the only company in the country doing that, with the excellent launch site benefits that we have, I think it makes for a combined package that's quite investor friendly, especially if we can execute the action steps using that $100,000 if we're successful on a Kickstarter. And it doesn't hurt that we have a really great team with plenty of experience to back it as well.
So let's finish up with that Kickstarter a little bit. Tell us, you've got your $100,000 goal. What are some of the rewards, and where can people go to help contribute?
Absolutely. I think for the average space enthusiast, aerospace engineer, aspiring astronaut, just about anybody with a passion for space, the rewards are quite attractive and just the sort of thing that people love to take advantage of. Some of them are having your name actually written within the casing of our first launch vehicle, which is quite extraordinary, particularly given the sense that it would be the first launch vehicle ever launched from Canadian soil into orbit. One of the larger ones is actually the opportunity to press the launch button. We're hoping to actually launch our first vehicle in 2018, which is quite lofty, especially from our position right now. But we think, given the magnitude of our vehicle, we should be able to do it if we're successful. Again, though, pressing that button, that you'd be the only person in all of history to say that you personally launched the first vehicle into orbit from Canadian soil. So that would be quite exciting. And then there are other ones as well, like having lunch with the open space team and being able to discuss the future of space exploration and space technologies. There's smaller ones like T-shirts. The opportunity to come and visit our engineering and launch facilities, get a full tour and accommodations and so on. So there's a little bit of something for every size of pledge, and then I certainly encourage people to check it out. The name of the Kickstarter is Open Space Access for All. But if you were just to search Open Space on Kickstarter, you'd find it, and we're also on just about every social media feed as well.
Sounds great. Hey, Tyler, thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday to join us and talk about what you're doing. Best of luck to you. I think this is amazing that we're at a time in humanity where we can kickstart and crowdfund a rocket. That's really freaking cool. It is. It's absolutely nuts, right? Go back 20 years. No one would even be able to consider something like this. So best of luck to you.
I appreciate that. I was just going to say real quick, it's also wonderful, though, because it allows the public to actually play a role in the development. And with that engagement, it gets people more interested in space as well. So there's two benefits.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's incredible. I really hope that you're successful, and we'll be watching you, and best of luck to you. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, comments from our last show. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome, future patrons of Tomorrow. If you're not familiar with who Tomorrow is, we're a live weekly webcast about the cosmos and human exploration of the stars. We'll feature things like rocket launches, we'll have guest interviews, we'll have amazing conversations about the cosmos, and of course an interactive chat room so that you can not only talk with other like-minded cosmic explorers, but also us, the hosts of the show, as well. And we're just generally excited about humans exploring space, and we're here on Patreon as a way to crowdfund the show itself, because this isn't something that a normal network would pick up, but it is something that a lot of us are really excited about. For those of you not familiar with Patreon, think of it like a recurring Kickstarter, a way for you to contribute to the show, but on a per episode basis instead of just once. Now, you can contribute whatever amount you feel fit for these episodes, but once you start hitting that $1 mark, we're going to start giving rewards back to you. At $1, you'll get your name in the credits. At $5, you'll get your name in the credits. Plus, you're going to get a exclusive Google Hangout. At $10, you get even more stuff. Contribute what you feel is fair. Now, you know what I said, this is on a per episode basis, and we do have more than one episode per month. So if you want to make sure that you don't spend too much money per month, you can set an upper level cap. For example, you can contribute $5 per episode, but no more than $25 per month. Or you can contribute $1 per episode, but no more than $10 per month, whatever fits your budget. And if you'd like to see where your crowdfunded contributions are going, check out our goals. We're always getting new equipment. We're trying to do cool new things with social media. We're trying to do some amazing things in this space. And each goal helps us get closer and closer to realizing one of those new things. With the help of you, our patrons, we can make this show truly something special. And let me be the first to welcome you to Tomorrow. And welcome back to Tomorrow. Now, before we get into comments from our last show, I did want to give a huge shout out to all the patrons of Tomorrow who have helped to make this specific episode go. Now, these are the Patreon Plus subscribers. These are people who've contributed at least $3 to this specific episode. And then we've also got our Patreon subscribers. These are people who've contributed $1 to this specific episode. Now, every single dollar helps. Like I said earlier, we are a crowdfunded show, and so you can go in and you can contribute just $1 to each episode. That'd be approximately $4 per month, and it makes a huge difference to us being able to do different things, do really cool things. And in fact, after this show, we're going to be going back and ordering the new HP server for our graphic generation and the crowd stuff that's going to go on the bottom of the screen. It's going to be awesome. You can get more information at patreon.com/TMRO. I have been on Reddit too long because every single time I've said that in the show this far, yes, I've wanted to say patreon.com/r/TMRO.
Nice.
And that is not correct.
Nice.
All right. let's get into some of the. Actually, this image is something that I had mentioned last week.
Oh, yeah.
It's something that we were going to skip, and I could bring up forward. Check this out. This is a picture that is from. Oh man, I don't even have the information. We found this on Reddit. Speaking of, and you can actually get information at the bottom. Has nothing to do with TMRO, but I thought it was just gorgeous, and you can buy that at the bottom of the screen. It's kind of one of those inspiring pictures that I think is really cool. I wish I had remembered to bring the moon water picture over to the desk.
Oh.
We'll show that in After Dark. So if you're curious, we've got another picture that we've purchased that looks absolutely amazing, and we've got it here in person. It's a hard copy. So there you go. You've got information at the bottom of your screen if you think that's cool. There are other pictures there as well that kind of have that same general look and feel that I think are absolutely awesome. All right, let's get started with some actual comments. This one comes from Daniel from Patreon.
I haven't heard a ton about the concept of building a bigger, better, nicer space station yet. Something that would support science, but be supported by tourism and even extended stay living quarters. What I'd like to see is a space station that has true artificial gravity, giving the ultimate views while allowing for normal gravity-filled living too.
All right, so yeah, I guess we kind of do talk about that. That's Bigelow stations, right?
Yeah,
that will be a
a little
privatized space station up in space. The problem is, let's just say that we had the most biggest, baddest, assest, awesomest space station up there right now for tourism. How are you getting there? Right? I mean, we don't...
No, for sure, exactly. It doesn't matter what's up there.
So let's just say, let's say you get a free stay on this space station.
Right.
You just need to arrange your transport there.
Sure.
It's a $70 million maybe if Russia will let you do it.
If they let you.
If they let you.
Right.
I think it's cheaper for, non-NASA people. But,
right. But
still, the problem right now isn't necessarily space station. I think that will be solved with Bigelow, or at least helped a lot by Bigelow.
Right.
The problem right now is the transport system. Now, we're getting into a place. It's amazing. We've got all these companies. So 2 weeks ago, we did the Electron rocket.
Right.
Today, we did Open Space Orbital.
Mm-hmm.
Next week, for those who don't know, next week, we're bringing Firefly Space on. So they're going to be talking about...
You asked for it, you got it.
You asked for it, you got it. So all of these small launcher companies... Some of them will remain in the small launcher business because there is a huge market coming up there. Tyler wasn't wrong. There's a huge market coming up there. But some of them may grow larger as well and start carrying humans, much like SpaceX kind of started with the Falcon 1, its small launcher, and moved to the Falcon 9, the Falcon 9 1.1, the Falcon Heavy. They have Dragon, then now Dragon V2 is coming out, and then eventually the Mars Colonial Transport. So, you could see a clear path there. Maybe other companies will do that same clear path and allow us to get to these space stations. But today... Doesn't matter. You can't do it. And artificial gravity, you mean spinning the space station, right? Because we have not mastered gravity. There is no.
Right.
We don't know how to create artificial gravity.
I saw in the 80s on Star Trek.
On Star Trek, yeah. So we need to spin it. Yeah. Also from Patreon, David says.
I was wondering, when talking about colonization, if you guys have ever discussed the ethics of pregnancy in a sub-G environment. Consider how adaptable humans are. Assuming a woman can even carry a fetus to full term in anything under 1G, a human child born and raised on Mars would look very different and may have some serious health issues.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because there is no human that's been born in space before.
Right.
We haven't had this as a topic yet. I don't know if it's an ethics issue per se, right?
Well, I do. I see exactly your point. And I think this could be a main topic coming up here shortly, because we could talk about this right now if you want for at least 13 minutes.
All right. So we'll hold off, but it's something to consider, actually. Leave your comments in the chat room. What do you think about humans having children in space when we've never done this before? We don't know what's going to happen. We don't even know if you can conceive in space at this point.
Right. I think the initial ethics issue comes up in if you think that the probability of a child having some major serious health issues, do you continue to try and have the child?
But don't you need to evolve?
That already?
Don't you?
Right.
Yes, that is an interesting conversation. Kudos, by the way. That's a really interesting conversation.
So there you go.
I think we're going to hold that one in our back pocket for a future show when a guest maybe accidentally doesn't show up or something like that. Dada, the next one's from you. Did you want to voice it for us?
Ooh.
There you go. I'm making him press like 9 million buttons.
Button.
All right.
Button.
So there you go. All right, can you read it?
Yeah.
Okay, ready to go. What'd you say?
If Apollo 13 happened on the way to Mars, the death toll of the Apollo program would be 6. Not 3.
That's most certainly correct, right? Now, my only rebuttal to that is, so what? Now, I know that sounds terrible and cold-hearted, but no. I mean, we will lose humans in space.
Yes.
In the future, people will die in space.
Yes.
People will die on Earth. People will die in cars. They're going to die in planes. And I know it's a very cold-hearted way to look at it, but we shouldn't prevent space travel because someone will die. That's not what you were saying, but that was the point that I wanted to make, which was you just simply said...
I heard what you said, and the answer is no.
Kind of. All you said was the death toll would be 6, not 3. You didn't. There was no anything other than pure data, which is almost certainly correct. I then expanded on that to say, yeah.
You know, why don't you just make your own comments?
I should... Ben's comments from Ben's show last week.
Hey, just checking.
This one comes from Mini... Did you... I mean, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Mini Elon from this is from Reddit /r/TMRO. Oh, it feels so much better to say /r now.
Good.
Go ahead.
Wow. There's a great low-cost options for small businesses wanting to launch a small satellite in space. I see a possible market for this rocket in an overseas market more than the American market because opportunity for launching small satellites is very slim in these developing countries. And at a low-cost launch rate, we will see more Kickstarter campaigns start to pop up in the not-too-distant future.
Haha, ironic, because that was exactly the main topic of the show this week. A Kickstarter campaign. I think what excites me most about Tyler and Open Space Orbital is that it is a Kickstarter campaign about building a rocket. Boom! Even 2 years ago, on this very show, I said that was impossible.
Yes.
I am eating my words right now. Now, even if the campaign...
Happily, though.
Happily, mind you. Eating my... Oh, no, I was straight up wrong.
I know.
Yeah, no. Even if the Kickstarter campaign isn't successful, and I hope it is, but even if it's not, it shows that we're getting closer to the point where this can happen. And I think that's very exciting.
Huge.
I think that's really cool. And you need to take more of a Copenhagen approach to it than, say, maybe a SpaceX when you're doing a Kickstarter campaign. Sure. But if that makes any sense. But yeah, I think that we're going to see more of these crop up and hopefully some cool, interesting ideas as to how to get small sats into space, the nanosats. And because going as a secondary payload kind of sucks. And yeah, as was mentioned on the Electron rocket interview, sure, your cost per kilogram may be lower, but your still overall cost is way higher.
Right.
So yeah, you can move more stuff up there, but if you only have a thing that's this big, you don't care about your cost per kilogram.
Right.
You care about your total cost to get this thing into space.
Yes.
Unless you're going as a secondary payload or something. Right. I can't pronounce this at all, so this comes from YouTube.
Okay.
Synderite?
Siderite? Zaquidech.
Zaquidex. Okay, all right, bring it up.
Wow,
I will show. All right, how do you think we should be pronouncing that? Siderite?
Maybe it's Siderite.
Zaquidex.
Maybe it's Siderite Zaquidex.
Siderite Zaquidex.
Right? You see that, right?
Sure. Siderite.
Anyway, this commenter says, that solid booster test looks like the perfect way an evil mastermind would try to kill James Bond. No, Mr. Bond. I expect you to fry.
You said that wrong. It's, no, Mr. Bond, I expect you to fry. Yeah, that's more how you would evil villain that.
Well, then you should have read that.
Yeah, well, maybe I should have. A
note for all of our international viewers, I did not put an accent on that.
I thought that was hilarious. That was for the ATK 5-segment solid rocket booster. And yeah, actually, fun little factoid, there was some sand underneath all of that, that after the solid segment went for, I think it was 2-minute test firing, turned to glass.
Yeah. I think we should make jewelry out of those things.
It'd probably be kind of ugly, but it'd be really cool.
Don't care.
Yeah.
Kind of don't care.
Yeah. All right. This one comes from FPV Reviews.
From YouTube.
Yes.
What are the chances of going back to the moon and reutilizing some of the equipment left behind by the Apollo missions? Ideas, anyone?
Not fan. So I feel like those are historical monuments.
Okay, take that aside. They've been up there for how long?
Like 50 years.
Okay, so their structural integrity
I
could
don't know.
be crap. Could be, though. I mean, you take out the historical significance.
Yeah, but what's left? We've got some lunar rovers, or lunar rover.
Yeah, one that has a broken wheel.
We'll bring up a spare tire.
But you see what I'm saying. My point still remains, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's only so much that you could really use with 50-year-old material anyhow. So taking away the historical significance, which I do still uphold and believe in, and absolutely.
Sure.
But even if you could, even if you had to for some reason, you shot to the moon on some sort of adventure or something, and in the meantime turned around and saw the Earth blow up. That's it. It's you now.
Well, then
It's
there's no
just
historical
you.
significance. I mean, there's no.
Sure,
Remember
but that's what I'm saying, though. Then what do you do with that? Can you actually use it?
You took this and went way over there with that.
I'm just
though.
saying, because I knew you would go with, like, well, history and blah, 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 and everyone should respect...
How
blah.
dare we respect history?
I'm just saying, though, above and beyond all of that situation, I don't know how usable that stuff would actually still be.
Yeah, I don't either. And most of it's, you've got the descent stage, which is not an ascent stage, so I don't know what you're doing with that. You got a couple flags that have been blown over or taken down. Some footprints.
Right?
And, some satellite. They've got the laser tests and whatnot on the moon.
Oh, so you've got mirrors?
Yeah, you got the little mirror thingies, the
try
reflectors.
To hold to something aliens. Anybody got a ride to Mars? Like, yeah. I just... In a realistic sort of manner.
Chris Howlett says, "What would be the point? That's like using the Titanic to build a ship."
Kind of. That's exactly what I'm saying. I just don't see. And
Ooh,
because
Sophia,
it
the
is so
radioisotope
significant-
generator may still work. That would be electricity.
Sure.
That would be cool. That would be
All right.
well,
That's...
not the opposite of cool. It'd be warm. But whatever. I don't know. I feel even all right. So
Fantastic.
let's just say it did work. I don't think
Sure.
we should touch it.
No, I don't think we should either.
I think it should really be considered historical monuments.
Yes.
And we should actually be careful to not disturb those areas, at least not in the beginning.
Right.
As we populate the moon with humans and we build colonies up there, maybe we can kind of build around them or build, preservation domes or so, I don't know, around them so that you can actually go in and enjoy them and everyone can experience them.
Right.
But how awesome of a future will that be when you get to go to the moon yourself on like a 1 week journey, expedition of sorts. You just hang out. Just hanging out on the moon. You're
We
in
need
your
to
little
make
car.
that commercial.
Let's hit the Armstrong Museum.
Right.
And let's go see where all the pictures are taken.
Right.
I think that would be freaking cool. All right. Final comment from YouTube. This is from Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Communications is a product which fuels a commercial industry which fires routine access to GSO. I assume that's-
Geostationary orbit.
Thank you. Somewhere out there is a moon product and or Mars product and or asteroid product which requires frequent boots on the ground access to those orbits to be profitable. Right now we are just holding our breath, exploring, developing, and providing the technologies, lowering the cost, getting ready for the discovery that will trigger the next big gold rush. Then that is where humanity will go next. I mean, there's Lewis and Clark go, and then there's Gold Rush go.
Yeah, there will be a gold rush in space. We just haven't found it yet. And I don't disagree with Bill at all. We need to find that critical thing in space. And it's there. It's definitely there, but people won't care until it impacts them directly.
Right.
And when they realize there's a gold rush up there, then everyone's going to want to be there because then it could impact them in a positive way directly. But until then, it's so hard and so expensive, and they just don't. Most people don't see how it actually does impact them on a daily life that they just don't care. So I'm excited for when that happens, and I think a lot of these smaller companies, they're going to do some pretty cool things to help us realize what's going on up there. Even outside of the launchers, we've got Deep Space Industries, we've got the other one, Planetary Resources. I'm like, there's the other one. They're cooler. Planetary Resources, well, they are. Asteroid mining type stuff. There's a lot of really great stuff going on in space, and you don't just need it to be a rocket. You can do some pretty cool things to do a lot of that stuff. All right, that's our show for this week. I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching. Join us next week when we bring on Firefly Space Systems to talk about their new carbon fiber / aerospike engine rocket.
Crazy.
It's awesome. I'm super excited for what they're doing. Stay tuned. After Dark's up next. If you're a Patreon at the Patreon Plus subscriber level, you can watch that right away. Otherwise, anyone else, it'll be available in 4 weeks. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Coming up, the Heat 2X engine from Copenhagen.
Some awesome re-entry footage from SpaceX.
And we're joined live by Tyler Reno, the CEO and founder of Open Space Orbital, and talk about random stuff. Start the show!
Random shit and stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
5.
First couple of times I saw this.
There you go, just whoosh.
It just looks fake.
This thing, now here you go. You've got the
Unreal.
final landing burn
Look at that.
on. You can see it kind of pushing and parting the water. And unfortunately, the plane is scary far away and could not maintain track. And it did lose it at the end. But, and I know we all wanted to see like that last, it was just like 2 more seconds.
Sure, fire, but
Two more seconds. 2 more seconds. It doesn't matter. The fact that they got anything at all was pretty remarkable.
cool.
And I think it's just awesome and inspiring footage seeing a rocket stage free fall back, right? Free fall back,
Also
light its
crazy.
engines, and basically hover over the ocean before cutting its engine. I don't know how long until SpaceX is ready to land on land, but hopefully it'll be coming up shortly here because those camera views will be amazing. One way or another, they will be amazing. All right. We had some launch coverage. This comes from Space Launch Complex 3 East at Vandenberg Air Force Base. It's an Atlas V in a 401 configuration.
5, 4, 3, 2. We have ignition and we have liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket carrying the Worldview 3 satellite for Digital Globe.
And there you go. This happened on August 13th, 2014 at 1830 Universal Time. This is the most powerful Earth imaging satellite for the commercial market that hath ever been built. I said hath. It is capable of resolving surface features on the Earth as small as 1 foot across. It has a multispectral imaging system and a high-speed data downlink. Check this out. 1.2 gigabits per second is how fast this thing can down. That is faster than my home internet by not a small margin. So this is a quote from Neil Anderson, who is the Vice President of Technology at Digital Globe. He said, quote, "With the capabilities of they are crazy, but in like a good
best
mad,
way.
they're like crazy mad scientists, kind of like in the good way."
Yes.
These are the guys who they're like, let's build a submarine. And so they build a submarine. They're like, let's build a rocket. So they're building a rocket, and they plan on sending a human on this rocket eventually. So here is a static fire test. This happened earlier today, August 16th at 1330 Universal Time. This was broadcast. By the way, this was broadcast live. Kudos to Copenhagen for
Yes.
broadcasting this live. A lot of companies and entities, and they don't broadcast these things because they're so afraid of failure. These guys did it live. Check it out.
10, 9, 8, shoot, 6, 5, 4, 3.
All right, now, at this point, I think we kind of lose audio. Now, we're about to lose everything. There you go. There, we just burned through all the cameras.
and boom, there
Boom.
you are.
Later today or tomorrow, we will post some photos where you can actually see all the cameras on the test stand burning. I have brought with me a couple of examples here. As you can see, I'll try to show it to the camera. This here actually once was one of our high-speed GoPro cameras. Maybe we can salvage something from it, but it looks quite burnt.
But it looks pretty intact. It's quite incredible, though.
Yeah. This, however, is the backside of one of our high-speed cameras, and this is not doing so well. And we have a lot of stuff, but we will.
Thing?
Oh yeah, this is one of the remote controls from the cameras that we also managed to salvage up from the platform.
This satellite, we could see home plate in Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. Not only can we see home plate, we can see the players in the field. And if we knew which teams were playing and what color uniforms they were using, we could tell you which team is in the field, which team is batting. We could even count empty seats. And if the stadium scoreboard was big enough, we could tell you the score. Yeah. Creepy. A little creepy.
A little creepy, but I think it's hilarious. You can tell that Neil is not a baseball fan. Because, well, it seems to me that if you can go all the way down to 1 foot, the average human is a little bit bigger than 1 foot. Could
Sure.
you not read that on the back of their, or on the front of their jersey?
Well, no.
It says Dodgers or Tigers, for instance?
You may not be able to. It depends on the angle in which. So you might be looking straight down at the field.
Okay.
You might be looking at it at a
I'm just
slight
saying,
angle. I mean,
they
who
said
knows?
that they can count empty seats, and yet they're telling me they can't tell me whether or not it's the Dodgers at bat?
Nick Forever says, I hope Facebook doesn't get their hands on this.
Facebook art. You know what? Never mind.
Facebook's already scarier than this. It doesn't matter. All right.
I
Moving
just
on.
think it's hilarious.
Moving right along, this is an interesting piece of news. United Launch Alliance has had a switch up in their CEO. The old president, Michael Gass, who has led United Launch Alliance since its inception in 2006, has been replaced by Tony Bruno, who's an executive at Lockheed Martin. Now, the interesting thing here is that Michael Gass was also a Lockheed employee, and United Launch Alliance is a consortium between Lockheed and Boeing. So there is no, sometimes you have companies like this where you've got multiple companies joining together where you go, company A runs it for a while, then company B, then company A, then company B.
Sure.
Clearly that is not the case here because we
Nobody
just went Lockheed right, back to back. So that was interesting. It also felt very sudden.
But apart from all this, apart from the engine failure, I actually think that we had a pretty good test. We have learned a lot today.
So here's a shot where it actually, you can see the whole thing from top to bottom. There it goes. I feel like there's fire shooting out of the side of that thing. and I think that was engine cutoff, and I think it's still on fire. But you know what? So that's what these static fires are for. It's to learn about these engines. The engine had a burn through and it did shut down prematurely, but look at how awesome this is coming along. Also, I love the windmill the windmill in the background for power generation. That's just awesome. So yeah, that was their test that happened earlier today.
So cool.
They were fairly on time. They got their procedures down. They learned a lot from this. They obviously have some stuff to work on their engine, but I'm excited for them to do another live stream of this and to show what's going on. And all their burnt cameras and everything else was pretty cool.
I love that. And keep the burnt cameras.
Keep the burnt cameras.
Those are mementos.
They are. Put them in a bucket and just like every launch, just have a new bucket of burnt cameras. All right, so
awesome.
Let's move along. So SpaceX released the recovery footage, the stage 1 re-entry footage, not recovery footage. Stage 1 re-entry footage for Orbcomm. Check this out. So here we go. We've got Falcon 9 sitting on the pad. This is a couple flights ago. You can see the Orbcomm fairing sitting up top. I love that shot. This is the recovery airplane going out. I keep saying recovery. This is a plane with a camera on it, trying to track it. Now, if you look in the middle of the screen, kind of hard to see. Well, you're actually going to see stage 1 free falling back to Earth. How amazing is that? You'll see another shot of it coming up here in a second.
Fake. I'm not going to lie. The first.
Coming up, the Heat 2X engine from Copenhagen.
Falcon 9 has some great re-entry footage.
And we're joined live by Tyler Reno, the CEO and founder of Open Space Orbital, to talk about his Kickstarter campaign for a rocket. Stay tuned! Tomorrow begins now.
Oh, it's beautiful, Mike. Got the flag up now. You can see the stars
Private space station.
And welcome to Tomorrow, episode 7.25 for Saturday, August 16th, 2014. My name is Benjamin Higginbotham. With me, as always, the beautiful, lovely, wonderful, and talented Carrie Ann Higginbotham, and we'll be your hosts for this episode. You like the way I did that?
I do.
Yeah, that was pretty fun. Before we get started with space news this week, I did want to give a huge thank you to the premier patrons of Tomorrow. These are the people who've contributed at least $10 to this specific episode. There are so many people this week, we had to break it into 3 columns. You guys are freaking awesome. You are the lifeblood of this show. If you'd like more information on how you can support Tomorrow, you can head over to patreon.com/TMRO. We are a crowdfunded show, so every dollar helps. You don't have to do just $10, you don't have to do just $10. That's true too.
You can do $100.
You can do $100,
We will
perhaps. So
accept
whatever
that
you
as
want,
well.
whatever you want. You don't have to
so
do
funny.
$10. You can do like $1 if you want to. Whatever you think is fair for this episode. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Copenhagen suborbitals.
You said that wrong.
Copenhagen suborbitals. I love these guys.